To the Cameron Hodge Show. I am your host, Cameron Hodge, and today's episode, I'm going to talk about what the military did for me. You know, I think it does a lot of things for a lot of people, but I can tell you without a shadow of a doubt that being in the military just completely changed my life. It was one of the greatest things I ever did in my life, and without it, I don't think I would be where I am today. So, you know, I had done an episode previous to this, you know, growing up in a broken home. I had, you know, parents that were fighting. My mom was an alcoholic. Multiple DUIs with my sister. I've had a driver drunk home from a wedding before. And like it's just like thing after thing after thing. And I just came to a point where I'm like, I need to get the fuck out of this small town. I need to get on with my life. And if you're in that situation, I feel you. I can tell you once I joined the military, I found out real quick that most of us have some shit going on, and most of them had way worse stuff than I had growing up, which is the funny thing. But it's great because it helps you put in perspective, and you're like, oh, I need to stop being a baby. I need to get my job done. So, you know, I tried to join the military at 18. I finally turned 18 and I was like, I'm done. You know, the summer after high school, went to the recruiter and I was like, hey, you know, and so to this day, you know, Binion was awesome. I think at this time, I think he's a gunny. Not quite sure. I think he's a gunny now. But at the time, he was Sergeant Binion, and I'm forever grateful. Like, most people have bad recruiter stories. I don't have that. Like, this man literally is like the pinnacle of what it means to just be in that position and be someone who's like he was not the best recruiter in the office because he didn't fucking sell people. He just knew what he wanted to do, and he was lucky enough to be in his hometown doing recruiting. Like, most people don't get that lucky in the Marine Corps. So as I sip coffee here this crisp morning in California, you know, I look back at this and, you know, when you go to join the military, like there's obviously multiple branch options for you to consider. And when I had looked into doing them, I looked at multiple branches. So the Air Force, I had a buddy who had joined, and I knew there was a wait time and all this drunk. And I'm like, I just look at them and I'm like, I don't think that's what I want to join. I'm like, I need more structure than that. And really, obviously, it boils down to Navy. I'm like, no. I'm like, I don't think so. And you look at the Marine Corps and the Army. And with the recruiters we had in our small town, I don't think the Army recruiters were even in that day. And I looked real quick, and I'm like, you looked at the Marines, and I still remember from high school Sergeant Binion coming to the office, and I'm like, without a doubt, you know, I think I still had his number saved randomly somewhere, and I called the office, asked for Sergeant Binion, and I'm like, hey, I'm ready. He's like, all right. I'm like, come on in. So came into the office and sat down and talked, and you know, long process. Had to get a waiver. Had stupid slight anemia or something when I was a baby, like for like a couple months, and like they flagged it. So between that and everything, like it delayed about almost a year until I got into, you know, set on for boot camp. And you know, what's funny is in the Marine Corps, so the way it works, you choose 3 jobs. Like, here are 3 things I would like to do. I would like to do these 3 things. And, you know, because out of the Marine Corps, it's not like the Army or other branches where you're like, I'm going to do this thing. Yeah, fuck no, dude. Even like then, like I ended up being an electrician on F-18s. I didn't even get F-18s or electricians. I was like, oh, you're electrical something, which is either communications or you're electrician. Like it's super vague. Like, I don't know what I'm working on. I don't know where. It's just a complete like shit show. What's funny is like I was like, oh, I think I want to do like, you know, firefighting for that. And he looked at me, you know, and this man, it's not like someone who does, like, he was motor transport. He'd been to Afghanistan. He's been to Iraq. You know, he's been in ID explosions. Like he's seen his shit, right? And while also being a recruiter working like 16, 17 hours a day, he was a volunteer firefighter. Like crazy. Like I'm telling you, this man, like he was a family man, had a close family. Like he was the pinnacle of like just a role model and what it should be. And he looked at me and he's like, if you do anything that's below like your knowledge, he's like, I'm not going to let you fucking sign it. Obviously he knows that he's like, I can't force you to do anything. He's like, but don't fucking do it. And I'm like, all right. I'm like, well, I love aircraft. Like helicopters, aircraft has always excited me. I've always had the model planes in the house and things like that. I'm like, they just awesome. He's like, great. Put that as your top one. I'm like, okay, awesome. I looked through the options and I'm like, working on electrical stuff seems cool. And so that's great. And then I feel like I put like artillery as number 3 or something like that. Like, I'm glad I didn't become an arty guy. I'm sure I had friends that ended up going in artillery, but I'm happy I didn't fucking get that position. And, you know, even then it took months, and like there were options to go sooner, but it would have made me give up the job I wanted, like infantry. There's always something that comes up for infantry and shit like that. And obviously most of the Marine Corps is infantry, right? It's ground support roles. What I was in was actually being a POG, person other than grunt. It was like the smaller portion of the Marine Corps, but, joined and, going to boot camp, fun experience, great time. And what's funny is every 10 years, they tell you how soft boot camp's getting. I guess if you look back to the 80s, they had the most deaths during that time at boot camp. So sure, I guess everything's soft compared to then. I still remember having Fight Club on Sundays in the gear lockers. I still remember all the stupid shit that went on there. Even nowadays, like how they want to get rid of drill instructor and stuff like that. Like, it's just fucking stupid, dude. Like getting rid of Sir and Man. Fuck you. Like, you know what I mean? Like, don't bring your political shit into the military. It doesn't need it. We're here to kill people and defend the country. That's what the military is for. And there's no doubt about that. And while I don't think, I never had to go to combat. So that's one thing I'm always very adamant on. It's like I never had to go to combat. I got very lucky during the time in the military that I had. I still grateful for what it taught me. I'm still grateful that I got to speak with, men that had been over to combat, and women too, but specifically men who are in like the ground role and things like that. I had friends that did have to go to Afghanistan and make those deployments and go through shit. And, talking with them and stuff, I realized, I'm very grateful I never had to go see that. I am. I definitely had friends that just aren't here anymore because of the military. Unfortunately, most actually were in combat. They were car accidents. Medical procedures gone wrong. Like, it was crazy to people. It's like during they think like, oh, even when Afghanistan wasn't winding down yet, when I had first joined in 2014. I know I joined in 13. We got to the fleet in 2014. I'm lucky that I only had to go. I had to do tours over in the Pacific scene. So I've been to Japan, been to Okinawa, Guam, South Korea, Indonesia. I've been to all those countries. Indonesia, obviously, I didn't really go to. I think my unit did though, so maybe not Indonesia. But I went to Guam multiple times, Okinawa, South Korea, and Japan, and obviously multiple states inside the country as well. I got very lucky, right? Like, especially the job I was in, like I didn't have to go to the field. I worked on fixed wing F-18s, so we had to be always with an airfield, right? Like, sure, like I still worked a fucking lot, right? Like 12 on, 12 off, which is really like 14 hours on, like less off, But the reality is like I always tell people, it's like, I didn't go to combat, I'm like, but I'm still grateful for what I did. But you have to be very careful what you choose when you go in the military, because the wrong thing, could derail you. And I can tell you, working on those platforms is fucking awesome. I never had to go on a ship either. Now it doesn't exist anymore because my unit is now an F-35 unit in Yuma, Arizona. So they have to go on ships. But at the time, F-18s, a couple squadrons were land-based only because we were two-seater. We were the two-seat platform, deltas, and so we didn't have to go on ships, which I'm also grateful for. Again, I don't give a shit. Like, the Navy people can be like, you didn't go on a ship. You fucking goddamn right I didn't. And I am okay with that. No shame missing boat time for me. But, the military really gave me a grounding. What's crazy is I always had a drive. I've always had a drive to do something better. I'm like, I don't know what the hell I'm going to do in my life, but I can't just do regular shit. I cannot do it. But I didn't know where that took me. So every step in my life is like, all right, what's the next step? Growing up, it was like, all right, I'd be doing sports. Every season I was doing some kind of sport, except during the winter. I ended up dropping out of wrestling. I would just do the weight room. I just work out every day after school. And then, I'd always work. So I'd work Friday nights, gas station. My summers were mostly work, right? Like I got an idea of financial stability and spending my money. Like, I'd use my credit card and I'd pay it off. I started building that credit and things like that. And joining the military was that next step. It gave me structure. It made me realize, at least physically and mentally, like on a basic level, right? Like, it's not SEAL stuff. It's not like none of the crazy special forces shit. But even on a basic military level, like, made you realize, even just going through Marine Corps boot camp, having to work those crazy hours and still being able to like intellectually think to fix those systems and troubleshoot and go through all that stuff. And then eventually, going through that, and like, it makes you fucking realize real quick, you're like, wow, I'm like, I can do way more than I've been doing in the past. Like, I can do a lot more than I've been giving myself credit for. And it's awesome to realize how much you can put your body through and still come out on the other side, which is where it is now. I mean, like, I've been up since 4:30 in the morning, and I'm getting this stuff done because it needs to get done. And, I'm sure right now, my wife's grateful enough to where she's watching our baby son. Usually I help in the morning with him and hold him while I do some administrative work. But, I told her, I'm like, this is the opportunity I could get this stuff done, so I'm going to do it later in the day. And she's like, yeah, go do it. And I'm able to wake up early in the morning. I'm able to do late nights. Now, eventually, age will catch up to me. I'm 29 right now, and it will catch up. But until then, I realize I know what my body can go through. And I know even going through this right now, it's nothing. It's nothing. I've gone through worse. And the military just helps set that boundary for you. And sure, it sucks. Like, your body gets beat the hell up. Even the 5 years I was in got beat the hell up. I have hip problems, and I think I have a small tear in my shoulder. I never got fixed, and stupid stuff like that. Right? That's nothing compared to, like, a lot of people really, they give their lives. And that's the ultimate sacrifice for this country. And nothing will ever compare to the sacrifice that they have to give. But, for those of us that get out, we get to carry on their legacy. And I think taking what we've learned to be able to build something and to do value for our communities is one of the best things a veteran can ever do. And there's different ways to do that. We all do it differently when we get out. Some of us don't handle that transition well. And that's another video. I'll talk about my military transition. But for this one, just know that, it can be a hard experience. In the military, one thing that really stood out to me was I remember, like, even when I first joined, right, you go through the physical and mental stress, but I was always a fly in the wall, right? Like, I didn't get called out too much in boot camp. Like, I was very good at just being there and not being called out. Went through my initial school, and then I got to my final school in Lemoore, California. And I remember getting there, and within the first week, they called me into the administrator's office, and they were like, Hodge. I'm like, Staff Sergeant, what's up? Not so much what's up. I'd say that now. But it's like, yeah, Staff Sergeant, what can I do for you? It's like, you're now in charge of all the students. Whatever her name was is leaving, and she chose you to be a recommendation to change the spot. And I'm like, what? Because I've never led people. I've always been the one taking orders. Like, I was like, what the fuck? I'm like, I'm just like a PFC. Like, what do you want me to do? Like, maybe I just picked up Lance at the time, but I was just like, what do you want me to do? Like, what? Like, what do you mean I'm in charge of people? Like, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing, but I'm forever grateful that I got forced into that position. Somehow in the military, I always got put in, even if it pissed me off, it was wrong at the time. I am very blessed just as a person, I always look back and I'm grateful for every decision that's ever happened. And I try and maintain that my whole life. I don't want to be old and have regrets. I do have a couple in my life. Thankfully for the military, I don't really have any. If I'm being honest with you, I really got to do what I needed to do, and I'm very thankful for how that worked out. But yeah, getting put in charge, I learned that real quick, even at a basic level, right? Just in charge of, like, peons, like these dumb kids who are still military service members, but we're not even hit the fleet yet. Like, we're green as grass. And, like, just giving shit, like, like, hey, we're doing field day, and I'm in charge of making sure they clean their rooms, and getting into arguments. Like, dude, what the fuck are we arguing for? Like, just clean your goddamn room, dude. Like, I don't give a crap what's going on. And they're realizing real quick at a basic level as a leader, like, you cannot make everyone happy. But you make the best decision for your people. You try and convey that, and you have to move forward. And that would convey immensely as I eventually pick up corporal and sergeant in my time in the military. And, it was like a basic level to being a leader. Obviously, I hit the fleet. I still remember when I hit the fleet. And I remember going into my shop, and the Gunny Farley at the time took his mouse, ripped it out of the computer, and chucked it against the wall because he was upset he had to deal with another new guy before he left the unit. The guy was super intelligent, but man, did he knew how to fuck with people. But what's funny is he would fuck with you, but you were part of his family in the shop, and he would defend you immensely. So it was a double-edged sword, but. And I still remember being brand new in my alphas, and he gave me a tough book on top of a jet, being like, "Hey, you're now in charge of everything that's going on right now. Like, you need to figure out how to fix this jet." And I'm like, okay. But in those coming years, obviously a lot of experience, learning how to work on the platform, learning how to find my role and get better at my job, and you start to pick up skills for sure, right? Most of them technical during that time. And then randomly picked up corporal, huge jump in the Marine Corps. It means you're now in charge of people to some level. And, I was starting to work on my CDI, meaning I could certify work. So instead of just being a worker, I could actually certify things. And we got a new command in the office, in the shop, and boom, they immediately fapped me out, which means they just send you to tool room. So now I'm not doing my job anymore, and now I'm just in charge of freaking tools. And it was between me and one other person, and because I picked up rank, and I've never been the cool kid, never the one to be the best at just making friends. I'm always the guy that gets shit done, and I'm always there for people. Like in the Marine Corps, I was always the guy that, people were like, financially I'm fucked. And like, I'd always be the one to hold that conversation because I'd always figure it out. Always had money in savings, never ran off credit cards. Like I always had investments and things like that, but I would always make it work. For those of you on the audio only version, I had to step out real quick because now my youngest is awake, and I told you it happens, but that's okay. I'm going to watch him right now. He's going to help us finish this show. So, going into when, I got sent to tool room and being in charge of that program, you're going to see a theme here in the story. And I got to learn real quick what it's like to work with higher officials. I got to learn networking to get things done, to acquisite tools, how to manage. I was more directly in charge of people over in that shop. And, those skills of networking and realizing that, scratching someone else's back to get ours scratched is a great skill I've learned even to this day. So the military really just pushes you down a path where you slowly build skills, and it's not just like the skills of your job. Like if you really let it, like there's other skills outside, that can be just really translated. People always say in the military, job skills don't transfer, and they don't. It's a huge flaw with the military. Like I couldn't just go work on aircraft in most companies once I left. Like I could do contracting, but I couldn't just do this. And what I was doing. And, it's unfortunate, but the skills I learned about leadership, about being in charge of people, managing systems, like that can translate all day and no one can take that away from you. Like that's better than any college degree in my opinion. So, during those years, I got to have a grounding. I got to find out who I was. I got to live with a purpose, right? And it's that purpose that caused me to learn more, to get into investing. I started investing during my real estate investing during when I was after duty. And it just allowed me to just slowly build skills and confidence in myself to be able to take those next steps. And I implore you that if you're not in the military and you're listening to this and you're considering it, you really got to sit down. I don't think it's for everyone. You do have the risk, like you do have the risk of going to combat, and you do have the risk of never coming home. And that is a very solid risk, and you need to be aware of what you're getting up into. But I do feel that as a man, you need to serve the community. Everyone should serve the community somehow, whether it's serving the military, donating time locally, homeless shelters. I don't care what it is. Being, police for a period of time, like it's something. You need to donate time to the community because we don't build strong communities without putting in effort to support those communities through some way, shape, or form. Like we all need to do our part in our service to keep everything growing in this country better and better. And this last year, I don't think it's been that way. But I think we need to get back to our roots of having a good community. So, and if you are looking at this and you've been a veteran, hey, you understand that, those skills can translate. If you don't understand how that works, you can always reach out to me. You can comment on this show below, or you can reach out to me at info@hodgehometeam.com. That's the best way to get a hold of me. You can also find me at Cameron P. Hodge on Instagram, Cameron Paul Hodge on LinkedIn, and I'm on Facebook as well, somewhere in that sphere. But always happy to connect. And if you're watching this on YouTube, like and subscribe. I'll be dropping these every single week to help bring you just my insight, my experiences as I go along this journey, and also bring in people who have better experiences than me at different things to get their take on things, people that I find interesting that I think could bring value to you as a listener. If you're watching this on the audio version, please don't forget to comment and review the show. Like I'm always looking for feedback to make it better, to be able to get better every single week, because I think, as people, we need to get better every single week. That is the goal in life. It's just to get a little bit better every single day. So I hope you got value in this video. My time in the military is something I'm very grateful for, and literally has set my entire life up for success. It's how I met my wife, which has turned into 3 kids. It's how I'm able to run my businesses and have some base understanding of discipline and what needs to get done. And I think it's something I am always going to be thankful for making that decision in my life. So I hope you got value in the show, and I look forward to seeing you guys in the next one.